My name is Naomi from the blog thevirtuoushome.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make pumpkin bread with your sourdough starter. So let's tie our apron strings, wash our hands, and get started. You'll need a scale and a bowl to begin with. I will include cup measurements for those that prefer that too. You'll need 245 grams or 2 cups of flour. This is soft white wheat. All-purpose will work just fine too though, but if you want to level up your baking, I highly recommend milling your own flour. For several years, I thought it was too expensive for our family, so I avoided it. I finally made the switch so that I could provide healthier food for my family and realized that it is surprisingly inexpensive. It only costs about $1.50 to make a loaf of bread, depending on the wheat you buy. That's like making a loaf with fresh milled flour for the price that you would buy one of the cheapest loaves they sell. Grain mills can be a bit more expensive, but I got mine for a little less than $100 on a Black Friday sale. This Nutrimill may not be the prettiest mill out there, but it mills excellent flour. You can also shop Facebook Marketplace for one too. Next, you'll need 115 grams or a half a cup of sourdough starter, 3 grams or a teaspoon of salt, 108 grams or a half a cup of olive oil or butter. I like to use olive oil where I can because it's cheaper than butter. I'm going to ferment this sourdough pumpkin bread in the fridge, but I will need to add the baking powder afterwards right before I bake it. And if I used butter, the batter would solidify from being in the cooler temperature, and it would be harder to mix the baking powder in. You would have to let it warm up, but this isn't necessary if you use olive oil. If you do choose to go this route, you'll want a single origin olive oil, or else the oil will be bitter and you don't want that. 200 grams or 1 cup of sugar. I'm slowly making switches to better quality ingredients, so I'm so excited to use up the rest of this brown sugar so I can replace it with some organic cane sugar. A can of pumpkin puree, a teaspoon of vanilla, now I need some eggs. I don't have chickens, but I do like to store my eggs in a pretty little basket in the fridge. I love adding a small touch of beauty here and there in my kitchen. It's refreshing and makes me smile. You'll need 3 eggs for this recipe. You guys, as I'm editing this, I realized I forgot to add the pumpkin spice. You'll need 2 teaspoons of pumpkin spice for this recipe. Forgetting the spice didn't impact the bread hardly at all. It actually let the pumpkin flavor shine, so thankfully I don't think anyone in my family noticed. I'm going to give it a good stir, cover it with some plastic wrap, and let it ferment in the fridge. I'm still not quite comfortable leaving batters with eggs in it out at room temperature to ferment, so I like to long ferment things like this where the eggs provide a good bit of liquid in the fridge. For some recipes, I just leave out the eggs, let the batter ferment, and then add the eggs in at the end right before I bake it. But it's not really possible to do that when the eggs make up most of the liquid, like in this recipe. So I just opted for letting it slowly long ferment in the fridge for 12 to 24 hours. I'm making this recipe at nap time while my kids sleep, and then I'll bake it tomorrow during nap time so that I can film it. If I wasn't filming, I would probably bake it tomorrow morning, but no worries. The longer it ferments, the more benefits from the fermentation process, right? So it's the next day at nap time. I'm going to preheat the oven to 350. I'm going to pull out my batter from the fridge, grab a loaf pan, some parchment paper, and the baking powder. You'll need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. You want to leave the baking powder till right before it goes into the oven, or else it won't do anything for the batter. Although this does have sourdough starter in it, I add baking powder to the batter to give it a nice rise in the oven. This is only necessary to add other leavening agents like baking powder to sourdough quick breads because of the proportions of the ingredients. Loaves of bread have the right ratio of flour and water to feed the sourdough starter to make it leaven the loaf by itself. But sourdough quick breads, although they do get bubbly, they won't be fluffy without something like baking powder. Now I'm going to prep my parchment paper. I learned this hack from somewhere on YouTube. You can wet parchment paper to make it mined so you can fit it easier into a pan. Add the batter to the lined pan and spread it out evenly into the corners. I'm just going to give the parchment paper a little trim. And into the oven it goes. Set the timer and let it bake for 55 minutes. Check it when the timer goes off to see if it's done. I use my thermometer or butter knife and stick it in real quick to see if it comes out clean. There was quite a bit of batter still on the thermometer, so I'm going to put it in for another 10 minutes. Let's check it again, and it came out clean this time, so I know it's done. Set your sourdough pumpkin bread aside to cool for 30 minutes to an hour. 30 minutes is the bare minimum if you're like me and like to eat baked goods still hot from the oven. Well, I hope you enjoy providing your family with homemade sourdough pumpkin bread. You can find the full recipe over on the blog, thevirtuoushome.com. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time with more videos on old-fashioned homemaking and sourdough recipes.